Well, for maybe 25,000 people out there, today is a very sad, sad day. So shout out to the very small, tiny community of Concordians that are out there. Those that have relished in the belief of Sony's first-party games as service ambitions. The belief that paying $40 for this game was going to achieve some level of success. The belief that even if this game struggled out the gate, PlayStation would have the capacity or the willpower to stay true to the few that believed, to invest in the players, to make something out of nothing. But as many of us have speculated in the past, as many of us have foresaw, as many of us have foretold, speculated about, and told you what would happen if a games as service game was to come out from Sony's first party and struggle out the gates. They would murder that son of a bitch. And that game is dead, 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 dead. They have stuck the knife in the back of the Concordians out there, of the players that believed in the hopes and dreams of the Guardians Overwatch ripoff that was Concord. And it will cease to exist. Now, they say maybe we'll see it again someday. I am here to tell you, I don't think that's going to happen. But you never know, I guess. Shout out to the chat. Shout out to everybody for being here and for, watching any of our content here on Fun Speculation and our streams. People say, hey, we shouldn't be dancing on the grave of a game. What about the devs? What about the devs? Every other game that the games media tries to sabotage. What about the devs for Suicide Squad that are being laid off now? That the games media was so happy to try and say why everybody should not play this game. Why these kinds of games should cease to exist. What about the games media that was all ranting and raving about how dare the games industry make these kinds of games? How dare they even try and make something like Suicide Squad? What's going on here, everybody? Why can't they just stick to single-player games? And all this time, they're sitting there saying we should rise up as a community and blacklist Suicide Squad. And guess what? Suicide Squad failed miserably, and all the devs are they're having layoffs and all these other kind of things there now. Where are the devs speaking about where are the games media speaking about that? Where are they speaking about that? Suicide Squad is actually a good game. Where's all of the games media saying, oh, maybe we shouldn't have been as hard on Suicide Squad. Maybe we shouldn't have even tried to put it in this grave. Instead, you have people like Christopher Dring being like, it's just never, even if it's like a platform first-party game, we shouldn't really be celebrating the fail or misery of these devs and these games that fail. We shouldn't be doing that. Meanwhile, other people write articles like left and right about all the failed games constantly out there, and especially if it's Xbox. Like, oh, Xbox, another failure. Oh, they just can't seem to get anything right. Oh, like where's the games that should make us want to buy an Xbox? Where are these games? Where's all this? Why is this another flop? Why is this another disaster? Meanwhile, games are actually getting good reviews and lots of players. This game actually fails to have any decent amount of players. There's more people playing on a bunch of random shit right now concurrently than even anybody that bought Concord. And yet now all the games media is saying, hey, we should be nice about this. We should be cool. We should not dance on their graves. I don't know, everybody. It seems like a bunch of hypocritical bullshit out there, and we're here to talk about that. And also, hey, what's going to happen with Sony? What are they? How are they going to handle the other games as service launches that they have? How are they going to handle their games? How are they going to handle Marathon? How are they going to handle any of these things? First, let's shout out to the chat for everybody's here. Appreciate you guys. Cyber Gunter, sup Dave, sup JMO Money, sup Thatch, sup Fuzzy Logic, Marwaz Sin, Def Leopard. Thank you all for hanging out here. Weapon X, Jax82, King J79, Black Card A. What's up, dude? Brandon Martin, shout out to you as well. Jax82 says Hiroki is not messing around. Alvin with the $2 super chat says Pundit Dring got to be on Sony's payroll by now. Oh man, Christopher Dring. I don't understand. And then like the thing about Christopher Dring is like he does some good work, right? But he obviously has these biased takes. And anytime anybody calls him out for it, he's like, I'm not biased. What are you talking about? I was always on this side. But it's like so obvious because he only has these things or is outspoken or says things when it's in like a defense of like Sony or PlayStation, right? But like anytime that failures happen at these other studios or whatever, he's always on the other side. And people give the receipts and people show him these things all the time. And he's like, oh no, that was just out of context. Or no, this is like, you misunderstand what I'm trying to say. Yeah, bullshit, dude. You only say this kind of stuff whenever it's about PlayStation. And it's just, anyway. Brandon Martin says, I wouldn't be surprised if Sony just stops making games as service games. It's very possible. I mean, they had a huge hit with Helldivers 2, which is one that we said they were going to be potentially surprised about because I think that the PC community embraced that game a lot because it was different. It's fun. It has a good sense of humor. It has a lot of character to it. The gameplay is blast. But they didn't like Sony themselves. I don't think knew what they had there. They didn't like market it very well. They didn't like hype it up very well. It was the PC community catching on to like, hey, this is a great fun game, and it kind of blew it up to another level. And then it kind of transcended into PlayStation a little bit because they got like, oh, this is supposed to be a good game. I guess let's actually try and play it now. And you know, then they made the fumbles with the whole PlayStation Network stuff and different access for different countries and all these other kind of things on Steam. And they're trying to work that out. But overall, Helldivers 2 was a big success for them. So they have that, right? I was hoping they would learn from that. I was really hoping they would learn from that. They've had other failures, obviously. Foam Stars from Square Enix is another massive failure. Things like that. They've been trying to figure out ways where they can kind of have this exclusive type experiences that are going to be games of service where they have more control and all this other kind of stuff. But ultimately, they just haven't succeeded very well in it, except for the one game. And I was, even before Helldivers 2 came out, we were saying like, hey, I hope they learn from this, launching day and date on PC. I hope the PC community really embraces it because that seems like a really cool game. It seems like it's going to be fun. And that's pretty much happened. But now we have the Sony side where the big games they actually had faith in, right? The games that they've been investing 8 years on. 8 fucking years developing this game, working on it, trying to figure out what it's going to be, all these things, eventually come out with this game. And for some reason they canceled a bunch of other games and they kept this one. So they are going to put out Concord and not these other games of service games, not Factions, not the other stuff. Anyway, so they decided to move forward with that one. And wow, like we could foresee this, like I said, like out the jump, like, okay, it's generic as hell. It's like a similar theme to tons of other games out there. It's kind of like sci-fi, spacey, futuristic-y, whatever, with a bunch of different kinds of characters, hero shooter, whatever. But like there's huge games in this genre that are very, very popular. that have huge player bases that are very fun, very good games that people play every day. Tons and tons of people. Xbox has Overwatch. This is like Guardians of the Galaxy / Overwatch is pretty much what Concord is, right? And they tried to come up with this idea like, well, we're gonna make our version of this, right? Let's make our version of this, and it'll be successful. We're just gonna charge $40, not have any real, foresight into the future of this game or anything. We're just gonna charge $40 for this. It's gonna be a huge slam dunk, home run. And what an epic failure! Like it just came out. Nobody cared. Nobody cared about the beta. Nobody cared to even play the beta. Nobody even cared to try it. Then the game launched, and yeah, of course, nobody cared. Nobody bought it. I mean, there may be a handful of people, some games media people, some people in the hardcore gaming community that are trying to be the PlayStation diehard guys or whatever, and then some people that just really want to give the game a chance, which is fine, right? Never said that this game was going to be bad. Just said it's not a big enough audience for it. Like, who is it for? And of course, nobody cared. Like, the game came out, its players were dwindling down below 100 players on Steam concurrently. And wow, it hasn't been but a couple weeks. I think the game came out like August. When did Concord actually release? Concord release date was August the 23rd. That's like 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, this game launched, and it's dead in the water. Like it costs more per day to run this game, probably for Sony, to even make the servers available and have the studio maintain this game or whatever. Then there is actually people playing it. There may be actually more people at the studio working on it than there is actually people playing it. So yeah, they shut it down. They shut it down. They're not doubling down. They're not going to try and bring the players back. They're not going to try back or get some, I guess is what I should say. Or anything. They're just saying, hey, guess what? We tried. Sorry, everybody. We're going to give refunds. Now, but in the past, whenever they've offered refunds at PlayStation, things haven't gone so swimmingly. So I'm hoping it's a smooth process for anybody that's going to get a refund, because this game's going to be a paperweight on disc. I don't know how they're going to handle the whole situation. I saw somebody made a post, like some guy was like, screw this, I'm buying my physical copy. I'm going to be playing this game forever. And not realizing that, hey, they're shutting the servers down. What are you going to do? This is another Babylon's Fall. This is the second time this has happened with the PlayStation exclusive this generation. The other one was one of the Square / Platinum games, which was Babylon's Fall, which was an online-only game. That one at least lasted a year. This one isn't even lasting like 3 weeks. 3 weeks. This is crazy. The games media say we should be nice. We shouldn't be dancing on the grave. Games at 3 weeks. When has a big-time first-party studio launched a game that's been in development for 8 years, that they had at their showcases and all these other things promoted and made people to think this is going to be a big deal, talk about it and all these other kind of things, launch, and it failed so fucking miserably that they shut it down within 3 weeks? When has this happened? This is like a case study for how, like, the worst possible case scenario to happen in gaming. Meanwhile, we see more articles about the failures of Star Wars Outlaws, which is, yeah, failing to meet sales expectations so far, but it's still actually a good game that has sold decently. And guess what? It's not getting shut down. Like, this is absolutely insane. I see also other people saying, like, hey, this is just games as a service's fault, ignoring all the other massive successes this year in the games as a service genre of games that launched. Absolutely crazy. Brandon Martin with the $5 super chat says, I'm in phase 1 of going full PC. Just sold my Switch OLED Series S. GameStop gave me $600. Got a ton of Steam cards. Keeping the Series X for the wife. Hey, dude, if you got if you got a PC and you're comfortable in that situation playing that way, and that's how you want a game, hey, there's probably not much better you can do, right? If you're an Xbox gamer, you get the games there day and date as well. And if you're PlayStation gamer, like if you like some of those games, they're eventually going to go to PC, and more of them are going to start going to day and date over time also. For me, if it's not just about the experience of the games and the access to them, or even the fidelity and all that other kind of stuff. It's about comfort and where you want to play. And I enjoy the ease of access of console gaming. I enjoy playing in other places like the bedroom, and have another room in the house where I have a bigger screen, and I like to play in there, sit on the couch far away from it, and all that kind of stuff, right? Like, and then when I'm in here, I play here too, right? So there's multiple situations, but for me, console gaming will always be a large part of how I game, right? And I prefer to play on Xbox. There's less and less reasons to feel compelled to be interested in a PlayStation right now, though. Like, it's still the most popular console. It baffles me exactly why. I think people care more about the messaging than they actually do the experience sometimes. And we have all these conversations about messaging and marketing and all those other kind of things. Well, if you actually just look at the experience you're getting and what you're getting, like a lot of times you may actually come to a different conclusion about, value and production and games and quality and all those other kind of things. Maybe I'm actually missing the boat on something that's a better experience because I care too much about the marketing and messaging of these companies and what they're telling consumers, right? And I think PlayStation wins in that regard every time. Like, they just have amazing messaging and marketing and all that kind of stuff. But people are ignoring this kind of shit, like this disastrous Concord launch. Like, the games media is trying to just wash over this. Like, hey, this is just a moment in time. This isn't going to really count for anything because you know what? Like, this just happened. Like, they have such a good track record. Oh, really? Do they though? This generation, like in general, how many remasters and remakes and all this other kind of shit are we going to keep getting? Oh, how about this Until Dawn fiasco, which is another one of the games that they're supposed to be promoting this year. Now they're laying off, the studio's facing layoffs, actually, before this game's even fucking out. Because guess what? Like we said when this was announced, who the fuck cares about an Until Dawn remake or remaster or whatever it is? It doesn't need it. So you're going to use that as to bolster your lineup? Like, why? It doesn't make any damn sense. How about you actually make some new fucking games that your consumers, that you tell them is what you're about? They keep telling their consumers, hey, PlayStation's all about the single player first person adventure experience where, that's just what we do and we're the best at it. And that's what makes us different. That's what makes us special. And that's what gamers should love and enjoy. Well, where the fuck are they? You're going to keep saying that and saying that's what you're all about, but you're not doing it. So where is it? Where is it? Like, we got Wolverine coming and maybe like, what was it? Possibly 2025, 2026. I forget when it was leaked. Was it 2026? Where are these experiences that you're saying is what makes you special and what matter? All you've had really in those experiences, this generation from first party studios, is a bunch of fucking sequels. You got a bunch of sequels to these same franchises that really are not too different than what you had last generation. And a lot of those games have also been cross-gen and you don't even need a fucking PS5 for. So why is it so special to keep playing on that as opposed to everything else? It's all about the fucking messaging. It's all been always about the messaging and the marketing. They're masters at tricking people into thinking it's a premium experience there and it's the cool place to fucking play. Meanwhile, they released fucking disasters time and time again. That are these exclusives. Foam Stars, exclusive. Concord, exclusive. Babylon's Fall, exclusive. Destruction All-Stars, exclusive. How come the games media people out there being like, wow, they just can't get shit right? How come they can't do multiplayer gaming? How come they just can't get this right? They've had one successful multiplayer game franchise in like forever. Do people not care about multiplayer games? For what it's worth, it seems like that's what the majority of gamers actually play if you look at the numbers out there. And they're so reliant on accepting the third party. Like, hey, everybody, we're good. We're third party. Why do you think they freaked out so much when Xbox was buying Activision Blizzard? Like, fuck. Hey, Microsoft already has all the good games of service games. Now they're going to even have more. Now they're going to have the ones that we've been relying on. Oh, we better go buy Bungie. We're desperate. We're desperate. They got to fix our shit. They got to fix us. Oh, we're going to come in. Oh, they say we should cancel factions. Okay, we'll do that. That seems like a wise decision. All right, let's go ahead and cancel factions. Oh, we're going to, hey, this Concord team that's former devs of Bungie, we're going to invest in that game because Bungie says that's the one to go with, right? They know what they're doing. So we're going to keep investing in Concord. Let it roll, baby. We're going to roll the dice on Concord. It's going to be our first party games of service game. We've been in development for 8 fucking years. It's going to be a home run. Concord. Space hero shooter. Yeah, let's go. Then they start to look at the numbers from Bungie. Hey, you guys, you said you kind of knew what you were doing here. What's happening with Destiny? Where's the money? Why is the player base falling off? Where are the players? Where's the money? Like, what's going on? I don't get it. What's going on, guys? You're supposed to be our saviors, Bungie. You're coming in here to correct our Games of Silver's multiplayer ambitions. You're here to tell us how to do things. Fuck. Well, we already we got to cancel some of these fucking games, guys. I don't know what to do. Jim Ryan's like, hey, guys, I'm sorry. I see the writing on the wall. I'm sick of flying. I'm going to drive home. I'm out. The Xbox got Call of Duty. It's over. Good luck with Bungie. Fuck. Bye. Concord keeps going in development. Hey, you guys. Hey, we also have this other game, Helldivers. We don't know much about that, but we're gonna put it out. Helldivers Explodes is a massive success. Oh, that was pretty cool. Hey, but everybody check out Concord. Everybody check out Concord. It's gonna be amazing. Concord is gonna be incredible. It's gonna be like change gaming. It's gonna be the thing. You know, IGN's writing articles telling everybody how it's gonna be like a big player in this genre. Bungie continues to fail. Bungie continues to erode from within. The numbers keep coming out. They found out Pete Parsons just bought a bunch of fucking cars. He doesn't do anything with actually in the games. He just like buys vehicles. The developers start to get laid off even more. Destiny Final Shape comes out, has a resurgence a little bit, fades away again. Marathon and Disaster, allegations against another Bungie high up over misconduct. Wow, we really relied on these guys to tell us everything. It's okay. We still got Concord. I mean, they told us it was going to hit. So this is the one. Canceled half the other ones because we can't afford it. But Concord's going to save everything. Put it out. Nobody buys it. Bungie was not who they thought they were. Firewalk just delivered a game that nobody cared about. And the games media is sitting there saying we should be nice. We should be nice to PlayStation. We should be nice about this. Imagine that this was Xbox. Imagine that this was Xbox. Imagine that Xbox, their big first-party game, their first one of the year was as a big first-party studio, comes out and doesn't even sell but like 25,000 copies, and they shut it down 3 weeks later and offer refunds. Imagine that's Xbox. How much of a bigger deal did the games media make about Redfall? Phil even went up and issued an apology publicly in an interview soon after Redfall's release, but just because it didn't live up to the quality expectations. It sold way better, way more players than Concord. It's still playable today. And they've improved it since launch. They actually kept investing in it. They kept improving the game despite its failures. Xbox, I don't know if they've ever had a situation like Concord. Even Bleeding Edge you can still fucking play. You can still play Bleeding Edge if you want to. They didn't shut it down. They stopped coming out with new content for it, but you can still play it. Concord's going to be a fucking paperweight. They're giving refunds because they say, oops, we shouldn't have done that, I guess. Absolutely crazy. I want to go into exactly what PlayStation said here, so I'm going to read their statement. Mario and Luigi killed Concord. I put out a tweet today, it sounds crazy. This sounds asinine. It sounds unfucking believable. But the game Concord has about the same shelf life as actual Concord grapes. Let that sink in. As a fucking fruit. An important update on Concord from Firewalk Studios. I was just waiting for whenever this was going to happen. I eventually this was going to happen because they can't afford to. This is not surprising really because of how epic of a failure it was. But, and I knew that Sony wasn't going to try and turn it around. I was just waiting for this to happen. Jasper says they will relaunch it next year free to play with some reworks. I don't know, man, maybe. Maybe they have so much investment in this that they will take some time to try and do that. But I don't know. I think they're going to change their mind on that. And I don't actually foresee it happening. I think they're just going to look at it and be like, look, there's not really going to be a fan base for this no matter what we do. I think they're going to actually take the time and consider that and just say, well, we fucking give up. I mean, they're going to probably say that now, but I honestly don't think it's going to happen. So this is September 3rd. This is 14 days after the game launched. An important update on Concord. Concord fans, we've been listening closely to your feedback since the launch of Concord on PlayStation 5 and PC, and want to thank everyone who has joined the journey aboard the North Star. Your support and the passionate community that has grown around the game has meant the world to us. However, while many qualities of the experience resonated with players, we also recognize that other aspects of the game and our initial launch didn't land the way we'd intended. We were expecting players, and there were none. No, they didn't say that. I added that part. Therefore, at this time, we have decided to take the game offline beginning September 6, 2024. And explore options. Including those that will better reach our players. While we determine the best path ahead, Concord sales will cease immediately, and we will begin to offer a full refund for all gamers who have purchased the game for PS5 or PC. If you purchase the game for PlayStation 5 from the PlayStation Store or PlayStation Direct, a refund will be issued back to your original payment method. Customers who purchase from other digital storefronts will also be refunded. More information about refunds for Steam and Epic can be found below. Once refunded, players will no longer have access to the game. We'll keep you updated, and thank you again to all the free gunners who have joined us in the Concord galaxy. Refunds for PlayStation Store and PlayStation Direct purchases may take 30 to 60 days to appear on your bank statement. If your original payment source was unavailable, the purchase amount will be refunded to your PSN wallet. 30 to 60 days? Really? Is that normal? I recall, like, for other retailers, you get they usually say like maybe like 3 to 5 business days. Refunds for PlayStation Store and PlayStation Direct purchases may take 30 to 60 days. Okay. Anyway, at least they're offering refunds, I guess. But man, imagine if this was Xbox. Imagine if this was even another third-party publisher. Another big-time third-party publisher like EA or Take-Two. Imagine they did this with Suicide Squad 3 weeks after launch. Man. What a disaster. Like, what a fucking disaster. Is this the most disastrous first-party launch we've ever seen? I mean, people are comparing this to E.T. from Atari. E.T. probably sold more copies. Like, if people give shit all the time for Xbox games failing or flopping or not being bangers or whatever. Meanwhile, like, Xbox has several highly rated games launching this year, and especially also now with Call of Duty you add in there, everybody's been playing the fucking beta the last couple days. It's like pretty crazy to actually see this happen. What has happened? What's happened to Sony? What's happened to PlayStation? Where is their image of quality, and if they're going to have things like this happen? Yuzu Ichikawa says, dude, Sony doesn't even give out refunds normally, so this isn't normal, but I'm glad they canceled that game. They need to go back to what they're good at. Well, they already launched it. They were to cancel it. They should have canceled it before it came out, not 3 weeks after. Like, I get you, but, like, you don't launch a game and be like, hey, you know, actually, we shouldn't have launched this thing. We're going to take it off the shelf, and we're going to cancel it now. No, you, like, go out there and you adjust and you try and figure out why don't they do this? Like, change the model in a couple months, make it like free to play, then give anybody who bought the game, offer them like partial refunds or refunds, or offer them credit in the game for like add-on content. Give them the first couple of season passes or something like that. Like, there's so many different ideas they could do without just shutting the game down. Like, there's other games that have done this before that have launched and had to change their structure. This isn't like a first-time thing but like shutting it down, like after an actual physical and digital release where people paid $40 for, and they're saying, hey, oops, well, we shouldn't have done that. We shouldn't have released this game. Cancel it beforehand when you saw your shitty pre-order numbers. When you saw that nobody played the beta. You saw that nobody gave a shit. Cancel it then. How about you actually go back, and when you're making your damn decisions about which of the 6 games to cancel in your live service elements, when they were looking at their pipeline and be like, hey, some of these don't make sense for us to keep continuing. We're going to cancel that one. We're going to cancel this one, cancel this one. How about you didn't keep Concord and you actually made one of the other ones instead? Like, that would have been a lot wiser. Like, why do they get these, like, why do they get coddled with this? Like, why is the games media not going after PlayStation like Xbox does for way less bad scenarios. A game that launches like Halo Infinite launches without Forge mode and without split screen co-op, right? Or without co-op mode. They get absolutely fucking killed. That's all anybody can talk about. Starfield comes out. A hugely successful game. Hugely successful game. Some people aren't happy with the space exploration because they thought it was going to be No Man's Sky. It's all they can fucking talk about. They end up coming out with article after article after article after article for months and months and months about this game. Even if you take it past Xbox and you look at others, Suicide Squad, even people like Destin Legary and other people in the games media talk about, oh, this game, why does this game exist? Oh, this game's gonna be ass. This game, this shouldn't exist. Games of service games like this need to stop. All this other kind of things, right? The game struggles mainly a lot of reasons, I think, because of the picture that was painted about it, even though it's a solid game. And now a bunch of them are getting laid off at the studios. But instead, we should be nice to Concord. Should be nice to Firewalk. Should be nice to PlayStation. All of those games media, all of those people out there like coddling and like babying and trying to say, you know what, like we shouldn't be dancing on these graves now. You know? Like, where the fuck were you when you were dancing on every other grave? Nobody ever gave a shit about the game. Anybody asked for this garbage? No, yeah, nobody ever asked for Concord. People want SOCOM to come back. People want tons of Resistance to come back. People want tons of other games. How about another Killzone would actually do well? Like, there's so many people asking for different games from PlayStation, and they give like Concord, which is like, for most, like kind of already exists in a better form or fashion and free-to-play format from other developers that are already established communities. Why do they need to be coddled for this horrible decision of investing in this game? The dance on the graves of Xbox games that weren't even buried, 100%. They try and bury them. That's the thing, Alvin. And that's the thing. Alvin makes this comment. It says they danced on the graves of Xbox games that weren't even buried. It's the games that are even successful, that have good player bases, that have good reviews for the most part, have a lot of players that love them or that love the games and all that kind of stuff. They try and create negative sentiment. They try and bury them. They try and create the graves. They start digging the ditches for these fucking games, and they try and throw them in there. They try and throw all these fucking games in there. It's not just Xbox either. It's other ones too. Like right now, I honestly think they're trying to do it with Star Wars Outlaws. Like, yeah, it's not necessarily going to be a game that's going to be celebrated by everybody, but it's not a horrible game. It's like, it's a pretty fucking good game. Like I like the game, but regardless of what I say, like there's negative pictures and sentiments put out about lots of different games. For some reason, it's like they pick and choose, man. And then they pick and choose which ones to defend too. They're like, hey, we shouldn't be this hard on this. We shouldn't try and do that. We should give this every chance to succeed. Oh, we should just be happy that they're giving refunds for this. So what a great job, PlayStation. Thank you for taking care of your customers. You know, all this other kind of shit. Meanwhile, they're sitting there writing articles left and right. Hey, you know, this game, I don't why does it even exist? Like, what? Like, who are these people? Why are they like contradicting and being so hypocritical constantly all the damn time? How about some even coverage on the industry and stop picking and choosing favorites all the time and try and bury what you don't like and push forward what you do? You're supposed to be actual journalists and have some kind of level of unbiased takes and integrity, but it doesn't exist. Everything's fucking fake out there. Xbox Gamer says, you guys think Astrobot will sell over 2 million? I think so. I think Astrobot's going to probably do pretty well. I think it's going to be a game that is going to be one of those that is championed by the games media and everybody about this huge thing about, oh, thank God, PlayStation keeping the platformer alive. You know, they're going to say stuff like that. And they're going to embrace it and they're going to love it. And meanwhile, Xbox has all these games dropping left and right that aren't getting any attention whatsoever. Age of Mythology Retold just launched. It's get great reviews. People that are playing it are absolutely loving it. It launched day and date on the console and PC. It runs great. It has lots of content and it's a fucking amazing game. But it's in a niche genre, so it's not going to get any attention. However, a platformer, they're going to say, hey, this niche genre, oh, it should be embraced by everybody. Oh, it should win Game of the Year awards. It should be all this, and it should be all that. Guarantee it's going to happen. Jesse says they should be striving for objectivity. Yeah, but they don't think that anymore. Games media, they don't think that anymore. They talk about it like they're critics and they're just opinion-based personalities, and that's what they should do, and that's what it's all about. That's not what I think, but that's what they've accepted. That's the reality now. The games media, that is who they are. They're pretty much the typed version of YouTube creators like us on this channel with just our own opinions and personalities, or other people on YouTube that like some of these fuckers are might as well just be Dreamcast guy with a keyboard, right? I mean, really, it's just what it is now. It's just the more extreme, sometimes the more crazy opinions, the more negativity, the more defense of what you like and all that kind of stuff is going to draw more people to you in that world. And that's what happens with some of these YouTube personalities that are completely disingenuous also and fake as hell. That are always just doing things just for the sake of numbers and content and subs, right? It's a game out there. It's a numbers game that they're playing, and the games media and the websites are playing that same fucking game. And if you don't believe me, you can just look at the headlines. You can look at the headlines of the articles. You can have a completely positive article completely taken into a negative light. Look at everything that's been going on with the Series S lately. It seems like every opportunity somebody has to mention the Series S, now they're going to write an article about it, or they're going to take an interview from somebody and even not include the question that was asked or the context of the quote. There was one going around about the Series S the other day from the Dune Awakening developers, and everybody's like, "See, I told you the Series S is a problem," because the developer says. In a quote, I'll bring it up. Because I wanted to talk on this too. Because everybody's like, see, I told you so. Oh, it's another. You believe me now? But like in the article, there's not even any context about what they were talking about or what the question was. So how are we supposed to know as a reader what they were discussing, other than the controversial take that you decide to highlight? Was it PC Gamer or was it VGC? It was VGC, I think. I'm gonna bring this up. Yeah, Until Dawn is significant layoffs ahead of the game's release. That doesn't happen very often either. That's absolutely crazy. I gotta find this article. Bear with me. Everybody was talking about this, I think, yesterday. Okay, why is this going back all the way this far? Did they remove it? Has it been removed? That's weird. This is so weird. Can't find it on their feed. Okay, here it is. Shinobi had it. All right. Oh, it wasn't VGC. So it's VG 24/7. Okay, that's why I couldn't find it. All right. This is the article. I'm actually going to bring up the article. It says, bringing Dune Awakening to the Xbox Series S will be a challenge, according to Funcom Chief Product Officer. It's one of the reasons we're coming out on PC first. So this was another one of the, like, Let's Hate Series S articles that's been going around lately. Also, people were trying to say the other game that there could be an issue with the Xbox certification again. I don't know if that's what the case is, but people were trying to say as a Series S there. It obviously wasn't Entropia and Entropia. I don't even know the game. I'm not familiar with it. Is skipping Xbox. Enotria. And there's some controversy on that because in the past they said they weren't going to be coming out on Xbox at launch anyway. So I'm not sure exactly what's going on, but people tried to make that the Series S, and they said it wasn't. Then you also had this other article from VG 24/7. So here's an article from Connor McCarr, staff writer of VG 247. Of all the upcoming big MMOs coming up in the near future, Dune Awakening appears to be one of the most graphically intensive. In addition, with an emphasis on server meshing as well as the vast open deserts hosting vast PvP battles, it's set up to be a real looker. This is great news for those of us with powerful rigs, but it also means a lot of time is in going to make sure the game works on hardware at various levels of power. Enter the Xbox Series S, which the game is still set to release on alongside the PS5 and PC. And that is a challenge, according to Product Officer Scott Jr. So here's where I have a little bit of issue with sometimes when these articles happen, because this is just writing from the actual journalist, writer of the article here. That they wrote that whole section. And then now we go immediately into a quote from the developers. And the issue I have with that is there's no context. Can you tell me what question was asked? Can you tell me what the discussion was? Can you tell me what came before this as well? Because obviously they're already talking about optimization during this part. But they just jump to this section without any other context regarding it. And it says, so it's one of the reasons we're coming out on PC first. There's a lot of optimizations we need to do before we release on the Xbox. But yeah, Xbox Series S is a challenge. Junior states in an interview at Gamescom 2024 late last month. Junior also provides an insight into what some of the focus has been during ongoing closed beta tests and stated that a lot of time has already been spent making sure the game runs on all manner of machines with different hardware specs. Unreal does a lot of the work for us in some ways. What we're more doing is optimization of assets and using various technologies. Be it FSR or something else to replicate frames. We want the game to look stunning on high end, whether you have a 3070 or a 4090, but we also want it to look good. I don't think we've released our min spec yet, but powerful cards from a few years ago would be able to run the game. It should look good. It won't be able to leverage the ultra spec options, but it'll still look nice. However, given the ambitious level of scale the game is going for, we asked Junior if it'll still demand a lot from lower spec machines, even with all the work done on optimization. His response, again, this is the part that's skipped over in all this controversy and all this other kind of stuff regarding the Series S. His response was optimistic. Yeah, it does, but it will still perform well on hardware that's years and years old. We'll be able to do it. If you're looking to get into Dune Awakening and test out the game for yourself, Junior stated that the intake of new players will increase considerably over the coming months up until now. Tests have been apparently been with a core player base, but future tests are aiming to push the player limit on in-game servers to the limit. Our next beta is intended to completely max out one world and then testing the start to the very end with our maximum concurrent users at one time. When we're pressed on whether a true open beta will be offered to players in the coming months, Junior kept his cards close to his chest, but stated that invites will increase quite a bit in the months leading up to Dune Awakening. Anyway, so they're generally having a discussion about optimization, right? And he clearly says in this article they're going to be able to get it running on older and very old machines. But there was one part where he just says optimizing for the consoles and specifically the Series S is a challenge. But there's no context into exactly what the conversation was before this. So what I'm thinking would probably happen here is there's just a bigger conversation about optimization and optimizing for all the different power levels and stuff, and him just saying, yeah, Series S is a challenge. That's not anything fucking new or news. That's just part of game development and optimizing for the different platforms. We don't know specifically because he said he says this sentence before, right? He says, specifically, he says, so it's one of the reasons we're coming out on PC first. Why? Because everything else before that was left out. Generally, what I think is happening here is he's talking about we're coming out on PC first, so that way we can spec it out to all the different levels, the older ass hardware and newer hardware. Like in general, that makes sense. But people try to paint this as it's the Series S's fault that it's launching on PC first. And that's why the context is important. And they just leave out anything before that sentence, and they leave out any of the questions or the discussion. I have an issue with that, like in general, because it reads like, and if you look at the headline, bringing Dune Awakening to the Series S will be a challenge, according to Funcom Chief Product Officer. They took this one little section of this entire conversation and said, we can get a lot of clicks from that. We can pay off on this Series S controversy that's been going on for a while. Same thing happened in another game that had nothing to do with the Series S, with that Inotria game that has something to do with certification process, which if that's an actual issue, Microsoft needs to get fixed. But there's even some controversy around that because there's contradicting information out there. So supposedly Inotria is skipping Xbox because they say Xbox doesn't care about them because they didn't respond to them in like 2 months, right? About the certification process. This is the same thing that happened with another game called, I think, Hack, Haak, I think is what it was called. I bookmarked it. Hack. They had said the same thing about why their games have come to Xbox. They've having trouble with the ID at Xbox certification process and not getting responded to. Whatever, right? So the thing with Inotria is there was them responding to people before about why they're not coming to Xbox, and it was just that they're focusing on PlayStation and PC first. And now they're saying it's because of the certification thing. So regardless, I don't know. But either way, it has nothing to do with the Series S, as they said themselves, if the Series S is fine and the game, it runs well on the Series S and that in development. So that's not a thing. People try to make that about the Series S also. People tried to make the other day something about the Series S. They tried to make the other game, that Stalker 2, that was running at 25 frames, supposedly. Then the developer clarified that he just accidentally misspoke and is actually running at 35 frames. There's a lot of manufactured Series S hate out there right now. And a lot of it comes from games media that is making these headlines specifically to target the Series S, to create a problem where not necessarily anything exists. As game development is optimization. There's been one game this entire generation where the Series S has been a legitimate problem, and that's been on Baldur's Gate 3. Baldur's Gate 3 was a legitimate problem. They had to actually cut the split screen co-op mode out of there, which for me it doesn't matter, but for some it does. So they had to redo the parity thing for Baldur's Gate 3 to get it to finally come out, and they missed launch. Black Myth Wukong's been proven even today by another source. Has nothing to do with the Series S. Everybody kept trying to make it about the Series S. Another source says it was a behind the closed doors exclusivity deal with PlayStation that didn't include marketing. Why do you think PlayStation would want to do a deal like that? Why do you think PlayStation would want to do an exclusivity deal that didn't include marketing? Do you think they also might want to think, oh, this is a problem running on the Series S or the Series X, or that Xbox just can't run this game? Of course, PlayStation would want that. There has been so much like just manufactured hate on the Series S that has not actually had any actual merit. You look at some of these fucking games coming out running on the Series S, they're ridiculous. They look amazing. They look good and they run good. But we're trying to create these problems and all these issues because of this part of a quote where the developer's talking about optimization, or this other person said this, or maybe this happened because of this, or maybe this happened because of this, and everybody keeps going to the Series S when there's only been one actual thing this entire generation we can point to was a legitimate problem. Even before, when the developer that had come out that worked for Rocksteady was causing a big stir about the Series S, was trying to say that it was like impossible to optimize for when people can't understand. It's like, and everybody was saying it's the Series S's fault why none of the consoles were getting 60 frames mode on Gotham Knights, right? And the guy was like, oh yeah, the Series S is potato, blah, 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 all this other shit. That developer that worked at Rocksteady, guess what? Their game, Suicide Squad, runs 60 frames on Series X and the PS5. And it works, it runs fucking beautifully. I'm not sure what it runs on the Series S, but if it's 30, fine. I think that's all that people expect, really, on that now. Like, to create these problems constantly and these narratives where it's real in people's heads. It's a real issue in people's heads. They've created this, like, games are skipping Xbox because of the Series S. Games are delayed for Xbox because of the Series S. There's no reality in that situation. There's no reality in that. It's a bunch of manufactured shit. There was one game that happened with. There was one game that was legitimate, and that was a big one. It was Baldur's Gate 3. Everything else is just complete bullshit. It's just been interesting to see this, like, hate campaign, manufactured articles, specifically targeting these certain things, trying to put things in their grave from games media. Meanwhile, we have to play nice to PlayStation. We have to play nice to Concord's failures. Also, to speak on journalism in general and all these other kind of things, turns out Jez Corden was the one that was right initially when discussing Capcom and the reason that the Fighting Collection, Marvel vs. Capcom Fighting Collection, and Capcom Fighting Collection 2 were skipping Xbox. He was on that. People said, oh, they just don't care whatsoever about Xbox. They just blah, blah, blah. There was an actual technical issue. They have actually announced that as being fixed, and those games will come to Xbox sometime in 2025. Yes, again, not at launch, unfortunately. But again, like, somebody else besides the major, like, IGNs of the world and all this other kind of stuff has to do the legwork and actually do the actual journalistic takes. And find the information, and Jez does his job time and time again. Meanwhile, these other games media outlets just try and defend fucking PlayStation and shit on Xbox every chance they get. Now I'm sure Jez is trying to dig into the whole certification process issue with Xbox to find out if that's an actual issue or not, or if it's an isolated thing with the other developer. What's going on with this one developer that has contradictory statements? All those other kind of things, because Jez does his work, right? He actually is trying to find this information out. Meanwhile, other games media outlets are just looking for the most clicky headline possible, and how can we take certain aspects of interviews and isolate things without context to actually create more conversation. And meanwhile, you have games media saying we should not be dancing on the fucking graves. How hypocritical can these people be? They act unbiased. They act like they're above and beyond. They act like they know more than. They act like all these things. Meanwhile, it turns out they're kind of, a lot of them are just scum. Concord, worst failure of the generation. Let's get to some chat comments. Fuzzy Logic said Concord failed worse than Anthem. Yeah, it failed worse than any game I can possibly think of. Name a game. Concord failed worse. Concord failed worse than Gollum. That's right, Yuzu. No one is unbiased, but they claim to be. That's the thing. They can't admit it. Once they actually announce that they are biased and they announce that everything is just their own personal take and opinion, then we can put it for what it's worth. There's no integrity left in games media. There's no trying to be objective left in games media. That used to be the hallmark of what made somebody a critic or a journalist, being able to separate yourself and report on the facts and the information and try and give information to your readers that's valuable. Instead, it's just opinion pieces. Everything's just an opinion. And once they can admit that, then we're good. But they lie and say that, oh no, we have all this access nobody else gets, and like we know what we're talking about. You don't know what you're talking about. Like, that's the attitude they have. You point out errors or actual misinformation, and they go on a thing saying we're calling them conspiracy theorists. Like, we're conspiracy theorists saying that they're on an agenda, even if you just point out actual misinformation that is factual. Like Jasper, when he pointed out to IGN that there were missing platforms on games that the games were launching for. They had these videos that they put out, and it's like, all these games are coming, and they had like a games Switch and PlayStation and the logos and everything, but there were several of them that are even in Game Pass day and date that they didn't even have the Xbox logo on. So as a viewer, you're like, okay, games are coming just to Switch and PlayStation. So Jasper's like, hey, these games are coming to Xbox. And they lost their shit. They lost their shit. John says, bet I won't say what the issues that Concord had. This is a game that nobody cared about. Like, nobody gave a shit about Concord. It just wasn't interesting. And nobody wants to pay $40 for something where there's a better version they can play for free. A more popular version they can play for free. That's the issue that Concord has. It's a game for nobody. The whole, like, people say woke and all that shit. Like, I don't think that's a problem for the game. Most people don't even care or pay attention to that shit. It's just the game isn't interesting. Like, it just doesn't. I don't know. People put way too much emphasis on caring about that shit. Like, in general, people don't even know that shit about the game. They just don't care about it. Like, people make a big deal about that with Starfield too. Like, come on. Like, can we just get over that shit and not make it a thing? Like, I don't think it is a thing to most people, only to some. And that's not why the game failed. The game failed because nobody cares about the game. Yeah, the character designs are bland and uninteresting. The gameplay looked solid, but looked generic and no different than several other things that are out there. And all that stuff. Like, in general, it's just uninteresting. It's just like generic as fuck. It's like the first time we saw it, that's what we said, was like, oh, it's generic. Why make another game that there's 10 other versions of? game is made around the ideology. It's a shooter, bro. It's a multiplayer shooter. I don't fucking look at that or even care about that when I see that game. Like, it's not even a thought that fucking crosses my mind. Like, it's a fucking hero shooter. I was like, whoa, I don't even understand like what's in the game that's making everybody freak out about that, or the people that are noticing it care. I just see a fucking generic hero shooter. I don't understand, but whatever. Babylon's Fall had almost a year support. Yeah, they shut down the servers for a year. I don't care, John. I honestly don't. If that bothers you, that's a you thing, right? You decide what you want and what not to play. I don't think most people care about that. Like, it just doesn't. It doesn't. I don't think that affected anything. I think that's just a game that nobody cared about. Most people don't know what fucking flags are in it. What, like, you think the masses on Steam, like, or whoever, know what flags are in Concord? No, they just know they don't give a fuck about it. Yuzu Ichikawa earlier said, to be oddly fair, content creators do the same thing to Sony that the media does to Xbox. It's a never-ending cycle. Yeah, there's always conversation. There's preferences. There's biases. The thing about most content creators like me, like I'll be 100%. I prefer to play on Xbox, right? I prefer the Xbox ecosystem. I want to like PlayStation. I've had every single PlayStation that existed. I've had every major Nintendo console that existed. I've gamed on everything. I like to game on everything. However, I'm going to speak to my own personal preferences and opinions based on what I'm enjoying and what I'm not. And Xbox is doing way more for me as a consumer, and it has been for a long time now. PlayStation is becoming less and less interesting over time. And Sony, I haven't been enjoying because of their hardware. The games for Nintendo, hey, cool. Hardware I have a problem with. I'm excited to see what they have for Switch too. PlayStation, fucking game. It's the games for me. It's the games. I think they have good hardware. They have no issue with the PS5 itself. I have an issue with the pipeline of games that get me interested, and there hasn't been that same level for me as they had back in the day, where there was more interesting things for me to want to play. And part of that is maybe it's they're trying to figure out this multiplayer thing, and relying on the brands and the franchises that I don't care about in the single player genre. I'm not a Horizon guy. I'm not a God of War guy, right? I like Uncharted. I like Infamous. I like Ghost of Tsushima. I like some of their older franchises too, like SOCOM and stuff like that. I would be more excited to try like a new Resistance or something as well. But I just not into Horizon, not into God of War, really. You know, I'm not into Last of Us either. I do like Uncharted, but I don't like The Last of Us. And I think overall that's been my main thing with PlayStation, is they're just focused on the franchises that I'm not a big fan of, right? I'm more of a fan of some of these other ones that they are ignoring. And Spider-Man 2018 was okay, but I'm kind of like, I got burnt out on it after that. I tried Miles Morales. I just wasn't that interested in it. I kind of got burnt out on it because it felt just like an expansion. Spider-Man 2, I didn't even get. They rely a lot on second and third party exclusives for their content, and those are very hit or miss, right? The ones that they've had more successes with are the Final Fantasy games. But even those have failed to meet the expectations of Square Enix, and are going to be going other places. And a lot of the second and third party exclusives they had will end up going to other places. Even something like a Death Stranding 2 ended up going to PC and Game Pass, or Death Stranding 1 ended up going to PC and Game Pass, which they didn't want to happen. It won't happen with Stranding 2. But in general, there's just been a lack of interesting games for me from that pipeline of content. And that's what I don't understand, is like the celebration of these games this generation from PlayStation. It seems like Why are we celebrating that when we look at what Xbox has already delivered and is also delivering, and it seems to be at least as equal or more than, and coming up is definitely more than 100%. And meanwhile, Xbox always gets shit on, and PlayStation always gets the free pass. The Xbox has never had a disaster like Concord, and if they have struggled out the gates with the game, they've still supported it to at least a decent level. And Concord, they are shutting it down within 3 weeks after launch. That's a fucking disaster. Oh, 100% Yuzu. We have streams where we're talking about Square and how stupid they are because of their exclusivity deals they did. And that's why they were never happy. They were never happy with any of their games that also before with their Western developers, they were never happy with, even though they did way more sales than their Eastern side. Yeah, they were never happy, but a lot of it was because of their exclusivity deals. And we kept calling them out. We have streams and shows where we just ranted about Square Enix and how stupid they were for doing those deals. That they were self-sabotaging their brands and their potential future success of their properties, and how they were never going to be happy because they're always shortchanging themselves for the quick buck and the insurance for the release, padding their investment off the gate, but no future foresight into like what's actually going to be good for the growth of their company and the games and their franchises. They were doing a detriment to themselves for a long time, and we called that out. People kept saying, "Oh no, you don't know what you're talking about. They're happy. Like PlayStation's, they're great. They're good with PlayStation." We called it out, and then that it wasn't until Square Enix comes out and said it themselves, "Hey, we fucked up." Like, we fucked up. Like, we need to do better at business. We need to start releasing on everything. They said this. They fired their president and then hired a new one. They promoted somebody else from within, and they had a different direction. And now that's what they're doing now. Oh, bro. I'm just going to keep it real with you, John. Like, the whole, like, if people can like this or not like this or whatever, okay? I'm just going to be honest with you. The whole woke conversation and all that shit regarding games and regarding society and all this other shit, I'm over it. Like, just fucking like what you like and don't like what you don't like, and it's cool, right? But, like, people complain about all this shit all the fucking time. About any time there's any kind of representation about something or somebody else that they're not. And it fucking gets on my nerves to, like, you have no fucking idea, okay? Like, I have family that is different from what some people perceive to be acceptable, right? And, like, I want them to be happy, okay? Like, and if it's a fucking problem for you, get over it. Like, get over it. Like, how is it affecting your fucking life? How is it affecting your fucking life? Right? Like, seriously. Go take a fucking look at yourself in the mirror and actually look at yourself in the mirror and say, why the fuck do I care so much about what flags are in a fucking video game? And you might not actually like the answer that you get back, because it doesn't fucking matter. Like, overall, it doesn't affect you, bro. Like, it's okay. And if it bothers you, then just move on to something else, because there's tons of other games that won't have that for you. Okay? Like, it's just ridiculous, man. I see this shit so much, bro. Like, the whole conversation about characters and games and all that stuff. And I know people, like, look at it like, hey, these, it's like, oh, they're trying to make everything like what, like this or like that, whatever. Like, there's so many fucking games out there, and there's so many games where characters look sexy as fuck, if that's what you want, right? And there's so many that don't. It doesn't matter. Just fucking play. It doesn't fucking matter. Like, it just doesn't make any damn sense to just always pay attention to the negative or something that bothers you with every damn thing and paint it as some kind of bigger problem. If other people's inclusiveness or happiness to be included or feel like a part of this world bothers you because you don't feel like they should be, take a look at your own damn self in the mirror. That's all I gotta say. I'm fucking over that conversation. I've banned several people in the chat for bringing that shit up all the damn time, and I will continue to do so. Just letting you know. And if you don't like it, it's fine. But I'm over that shit. Just being honest. And if you don't like that's who I am, I don't fucking care either. Because I'll stand up for people that aren't like me, and I'll be happy to do so. I'm a fucking white guy from Texas, and I live in an area where a lot of people think differently from me, and I'm okay with that. I accept them for their thoughts and who they are, but I'm not going to sit there and fucking, like, just have people fucking say this shit every single fucking time there's a problem or something that they don't like in a fucking game or something. You know, like, come on. Really? Anyway, moving on. Concord sucked. It failed. And it's probably the biggest disaster in gaming history. But we gotta protect it. We gotta protect it. Right? Just nothing we can do. You know, hey, they tried. And overall, you know, we got to be nice to them now, right? We got to be nice. We got to be nice to the Concord devs, everybody. 100%, Alvin. 100%. Let's see what else we got here. Yuzu Ichikawa says, do you think Sony should have kept it going? As you mentioned, Microsoft would have, unless I misheard that. Well, I mean, Microsoft still like supported Bleeding Edge for a long time. And then still the servers still exist because there is a fan base that plays that game still, even if it's a very small amount of people. Right? Like, overall, do I think that they should have kept it going? I think, yes. They released a game that people bought. Did I expect them to? No. We called this way before the game even fucking launched. When this game was announced. When we actually learned what this game is, we said, oh, this game's going to be dead within a year. I didn't expect it to be dead in 3 fucking weeks. 3 weeks. They didn't even let the fucking paint dry. They're like, hey, we tried. Nobody cared. We don't care. Shut it down. Shut it down. Let's move on. They got 26 players this time. I'm curious. Like, I think they have a slightly more on PlayStation than they did on Steam. But fuck, like, it's crazy to see the numbers. Like, it's historic. To that, yeah, less than 2 weeks when they announced it. It was August 23rd to September 9th. So that is 8 days plus 9. That's 17 days. From today, it's 13 days, but like till the 9th when it's shut down. Or is it the 6th? Or is it shut down the 6th or the 9th? 6th. Oh, fuck. Okay, so that's in 3 days. So, yeah, 16 days? Wait, 8 days in August. 14 days. I'm sorry, my math is bad. 14 days. So that's 2 days. That's 2 weeks. Fuck, you're right. It didn't last 2 weeks. The game hasn't even been out for 2 weeks. Yeah. I was thinking in my head 3. But yeah, fucking 2 weeks. That's even crazier. That's even fucking crazier. The games in the last 2 weeks. That's insane. You got to think like overall. Yeah, the Until Dawn thing's going on. People getting laid off before the game's even out, right? You have this disaster. I mean, Firewalk. I hope the best for them. I do, but like, I'm wondering what's going to happen to them. You know, like, do they get moved on to support something else? Do they actually end up relaunching this thing? How are they going to relaunch it? If they do, when is it going to happen? Are they going to actually try and give this another go, reshape it, because they've invested so much for so long that they just can't fathom throwing it away? I don't know. I just have a hard time thinking they're going to actually continue to figure this game out. And I don't know where it launched. Like, you look at how many successful online multiplayer games Xbox has now in their pipeline that have a lot of players all the time, right? You can look at something that was considered a disaster and talked shit on by PlayStation fans and games media for this entire generation now, Halo Infinite. Like, fuck, if you compare, the success of the Sony games and service games compared to Halo Infinite's been having a pretty damn good run at this point. Sea of Thieves. You have the Age games. They're kind of games of service now. They keep supporting them and coming out with content now. And you have Age 2, Age 4, and Age of Mythology. You have Forza Horizon 4. Forza Horizon 5. That is a crazy big success. You have Grounded. You have State of Decay. Did I say Sea of Thieves? I think I did. You have Elder Scrolls Online. You have Fallout 76. Minecraft, Overwatch, Diablo. I mean, just game after game after game that have big player bases that are continuing to play these games. Obviously, Call of Duty. And PlayStation has Helldivers. Age of Mythology is not a live service game. That's fine. You can say that, but the other Age games have continued to come out with content later that people can buy. Maybe you don't consider it live service, but they have ongoing support with additional content added, which Age of Mythology will also have. Kind of, I don't know. It's kind of servicey. I mean, they keep supporting those games, so. In fairness, Xbox got like 40 plus studios. Yeah. Well, and in fairness, PlayStation has been applauded for their studios for a long time. So what's going on with their studios? Well, I'll tell you what's going on. They've had to go so much second and third party because they don't have enough studios. And are they in trouble now? Like, is PlayStation, what happens if Fair Games comes out and it suffers the same fate? Does this launch affect their decision on what to do with Fair Games? What happens with Metaphor? Metaphor is supposedly in turmoil behind the scenes, according to some reports. And what's going to happen if that launches and doesn't reach anywhere near the level of success that they're hoping? Then PlayStation continues to rely on second and third party games like companies from Microsoft to have games and service games in their storefront. And then they continue to make deals with second and third party devs, even behind the scenes, shady deals like they do with Black Myth Wukong. Yeah, let's say Marathon. You're right. My bad. Metaphor is the JRPG that I'm excited about. Marathon. Yes. I apologize. And then they'll keep making second and third party deals for exclusive games, and they'll continue to have a very slow cadence of first party releases. And is that their path to growth? PlayStation's looking to grow, everybody. PlayStation's looking to find more players and find more ways to invest in all of the franchises and the IP that they've invested in so much. They're trying to get a return now. This is their words. They're trying to get that return phase. How are they gonna do that if they can't have any multiplayer games that are gonna be successful? OCD Gamer says they just need to listen to their fan base and make gas games like Twisted Metal, SOCOM. Yeah, dude, 100%. So we've been saying, like, they have the stuff. It's like, how did Concord be the one that they decided to move forward with? OCD Gamer says, "Do I know how the media would react if Concord was made by Xbox? Oh, it would have been, dude. It would have been like the worst thing ever to happen in gaming. If Concord happened and it was the Xbox launch, and it was like a highly touted, like marketed game, like it would have been fuck." Like, you would see every article for every... But here's the other thing. If Concord was an Xbox game, it actually would have had a little bit more success and wouldn't have been as much of a disaster. Because it would have been in Game Pass, day and date. It would have automatically found at least some amount of player base. And it also would have probably had more support and some kind of a pipeline of content. Because they're more used to multiplayer games, right? So that being said, I don't think the same disaster would have happened with Xbox. But if it did, if the Xbox handled this and launched in the same way and did the same thing that PlayStation did with Concord, it would have been fucking like, oh, the Xbox needs to shut down. They can't make games. They don't know what the hell they're doing. They don't deserve to be in the industry. What a disaster. How can they do this to the developers? How can they do this to the fans? Everything is Xbox's fault. Phil Spencer needs to be fired. There's no leadership at Microsoft in gaming department. It's the Series S's fault. Why did the Series S cause so few players in Concord? How does that? Where's the Game Pass numbers? Is this the Game Pass is not sustainable? Game Pass is ruining the industry with games like Concord. It's all Game Pass's fault that games like Concord exist. We need to stop this treachery of Microsoft invading the gaming space with disastrous games like Concord. This is the kind of articles we would see all over the place, right? Because what do we see? When Xbox has even a slightly less bad situation, like let's say they have a good game that is like solid and good reviews and a good amount of players, but it's not like this massive hit. It has a couple things wrong with it or whatever. Those are the kind of articles you see then, right? Those are the kind of articles you see even just in a normal game launch situation with Microsoft. And instead, you're seeing like just this, hey, let's make sure we don't take it too hard on these guys. Signa says they're still getting that 30% cut. Nothing changes. We talked about the games of service games in Sony's storefront. You know what changes? Leverage. Who becomes more important to who? OCD Gamer says Concord was on PC as well, so plenty of people had access to it. Nobody wanted a game like Concord. Yeah, for sure. The Series S's fault. Concord failed anyway. They were gonna make it multi-plat, but the Series S was too hard to optimize for. Yeah, probably. Yeah, that's probably what people are saying. That's probably you're beginning to see an article. You know, like it would have succeeded if it could have come to Xbox, but the Series S prevented that. And also it couldn't pass Xbox certification. It's just crazy, man. It's absolutely crazy to see like the overall kind of reaction from the games media regarding that. And so most people, I know you're trolling, dude. And most people are still just writing articles about the fucking Series S still. And like everybody's talking about the Series S and how it's like destroying gaming and how like Xbox made a huge mistake and all this other stuff. And there's like still nothing there. I have yet to see somebody actually present something to me or see one of these quotes or one of these articles online that tells me the Series S is an ongoing issue in gaming. Like it's just all this manufactured belief and this community-based narrative that exists, and a lot of it comes also from those kind of headlines and articles that the games media puts out there. And a lot of it's just bullshit, man. Trying to dig a grave for it. It's a good piece of hardware. Like overall, I think it's interesting to see. Like there could be a conversation on a two, like level approach to gaming and what that means for game development, and if it's obviously it's harder, it's more difficult to optimize for lesser hardware. That's always been a thing. But does that actually cause the issues, or do they just cause the developers to have to optimize their games if they want to release on Xbox? That's fine. I think that's good. I think the developers should optimize their games to release on Xbox. I think they should optimize their games everywhere. We shouldn't be saying like, hey, we should just be like allow them to brute force this shit. Like, it's fine. They don't have to optimize anything. We'll just keep like, why don't we just fucking make everything like a 4090 and pay $1,500 for our consoles? So that way the developers don't have to optimize. Hey, let's just do that. You know, hey, I'm down for that too. Like if you want to sell consoles that are super expensive, that are great for experiences, I'm down for that too. But I still want the developers to fucking optimize for it. 3-Bit says, I think I'm done explaining. LOL, had so many people attack me over the weekend because I mentioned that it wasn't the Series S, but the devs, and had so many DMs and messages. Dude, like 3-Bit, like people like are just so ready and have decided for themselves that the Series S is a massive problem that I don't think anybody explaining anything or actually painting the picture of what's actually happening is going to sway their opinion or minds or whatever. It's just there's been enough fake shit or random stuff out there or articles or clickbait stuff to paint this like picture that fits into their puzzle, right? It like fits into their narrative and adds another piece, even though each one of them ends up becoming disproven. Even if every single one of them ends up being disproven or inaccurate, then it doesn't matter because it still was a moment in time where the discussion happened. That makes sense. Hey, remember when we were talking about this was a problem? And it's just a memory in their mind. Hey, remember the Series S was a problem in this game, even if it was disproven the next day. Hey, remember when the Stalker 2 dev said that like it was running at 25 frames per second? Yeah, I remember that, but then he also said that he misspoke and it was actually 35 frames, but it's also, they said they had plenty of room left for optimization anyway, and there wasn't really an issue. They were just talking about how great it was working with Microsoft, helping them optimize their games. And if you actually read the article, but if you actually read the headline, it paints the Series S as a problem. Hey, remember when we read that article about Dune Awakening, seeing how the Series S is a challenge to develop for? I see that, but I have no context into what they're actually discussing, and I actually don't see it as a problem. They're just talking about optimizing for different levels of hardware, in which they also said they're developing and optimizing for way older hardwares on PC. And they said they believe they're going to have everything great. So I saw that. Again, not an issue, but taking one piece of out of context piece of information to where you can make a headline out of it for clicks is a good thing that games media people do to get revenue. So that's where that comes from as well, especially a couple days after the Series S is already a huge conversation piece. I saw that. Oh, remember when Anatria, when that thing happened and they couldn't pass certification because of the Series S? I remember that as well, but it wasn't because of that. It was actually because they just didn't pass certification because Microsoft has a certification problem with their services and they are not replying to the developers, which is a separate issue. And we should make sure we highlight what the actual issue is so Microsoft can get that fixed, because that's fucking ridiculous. But then even then, there's still controversy because the developer themselves contradicted themselves, saying before that they were never even going to release on Xbox at launch. So which thing is true from the same developer? I don't know. However, if that's an issue, that needs to be fixed, but it's not the Series S. You remember when Black Myth Wukong didn't release on Xbox because of the Series S? I remember everybody talking about that, but again, that was not actually factual. Instead, it's been proven now and debunked because there's been now, I think, 5 different outlets reporting on the same information that there was an exclusivity deal paid for by Sony behind the scenes that didn't get reported or that wasn't marketed. 5 different times, different journalists, even IGN, saying this, who is, we know, in Sony's pockets, is saying this. Yeah, I remember that conversation. That was, again, another thing that was not right. So how many times can we have these different conversations that end up being fucking unfactual and disproven before we realize that, hey, all of this has been just conversation in the gaming community about a bunch of non-issues? One time this generation, there was a legitimate issue, and I said this several times. This fucking on Baldur's Gate 3 because they wanted to have split-screen co-op on this massive, open, huge game where you could go wherever you want, and they were having issues with that. They caused them to miss launch. They ended up having to do more optimization, ended up helping all of them, but they still couldn't do the parity from Series S to Series X. And in that situation, Microsoft made an exception. That was a legitimate issue. One time, this entire generation, and they got it resolved. It was a problem because they didn't come out and release on launch day, right? That was an issue, yes. Black Myth Wukong is not the same situation, and none of these other things are the same situation. Oh, you remember when the Rocksteady dev was blaming the Series S for the Gotham Knights, which wasn't even their game, it was Eidos Montreal's game. However, but they were, not Eidos Montreal, WB Montreal's game. And they were trying to defend the WB Montreal's, saying that nobody should be expecting 60 frames from all these things. And also, that same developer had routinely called Series S a potato, and they hated optimizing for it. This person was also a artist, not actually in the optimization department or an engineer or anything like that. Also disproven, as Rocksteady's own game ended up performing well on the Series S and also ran 60 frames on the Series X and the PS5, proving that Series S did not hold back the PS5 and the Series X development on Suicide Squad whatsoever, and which was also a much more demanding game than Gotham Knights, the game he was arguing for to begin with. Again, another time that information was talked about and put out there and talked about by many podcasts and people in games media and all these things that turned out to be a non-issue, non-factual. So every single one of those, besides the Baldur's Gate 3 situation, is a non-issue and also can be disproven, and also is just ridiculous to even have these big-ass conversations about. But because there's been so many of them, it has become a reality in all these people's minds that this is an issue. I will say it time and time again that, hey, there's reason to have an open discussion just about developing for lower end specs and game development. Yeah, it can be more optimization needed, more time. That was obvious from the jump. Doesn't mean it's a problem. It doesn't mean that games are skipping Xbox because of the Series S. It doesn't mean that all the developers out there hate the Series S. It doesn't mean that every single problem that exists, you can look for it and try and blame it on the Series S. You can keep creating the same narrative in your mind, and every single time one of these situations pops up, you're like, oh, look, see? See this? See this clickbait headline that actually has no context or information in it whatsoever, that it completely ignores all the talking points about what they're even discussing in the first place? Just talking generally about optimization. You see that? You see that article right there with that clickbait headline? Yeah, that adds to my narrative. All these things add to my narrative. So I'm just going to keep running with it and make it a fucking reality. Games Media trying to dig the fucking grave for Xbox and for the Series S for a long time now, while saying we should not be dancing on the grave of the biggest failure in first-party platform history in fucking Concord. That says console sales. Mav console sales. Ponies are under the impression that every PS5 sold at $4.99. Sony makes a profit of $4.99. Yeah, Sony doesn't make much of a profit on consoles in general, and if they do, their numbers came out during the FTC trial and stuff, and all these other things about the actual profit from the consoles, and neither of them make a good profit. Sony makes a small profit on hardware. In general, like anytime the financials come out and they talk revenue, oh look how this hardware revenue is up, all this other stuff doesn't equate profit. Software and services is where the profit's at within the gaming industry, unless you're Nintendo, who makes a hefty profit on every single Switch sold, which they could also be criticized for, which nobody ever speaks out about, how they're still charging the ridiculous amount prices for old ass tech because they can get away with it. We'll see what the next Switch comes out as. But yeah, PlayStation and Xbox, neither of them make good profit on the hardware. It's about how many people you reach. Hardware is a access point to reach the consumers to buy the products, right? The products and the content and services are where you make your profit. Beforehand, consoles were really the only mainstream way to reach the consumers. PC gaming kept growing. Now mobile gaming is way surpassed. But back in the day, consoles were the main way because it was the most affordable way. People couldn't afford PCs, and PCs couldn't run games very well back then. Even if you could manage to afford it, unless you happen to be well off enough to get a gaming PC. Now gaming PCs are becoming more and more prevalent as they've sustained around the same price, but everything else has gone up. Consoles are getting more expensive. Hardware market for the console is about the same as it's been since the PS2 era. You're selling to the same consumers every generation. Maybe you add some and lose some. It hasn't grown. Meanwhile, PC's grown, mobile's growing, cloud market is exploding. All these other things are taking off. You have handheld PC gaming now is a new expanding market. All these other things, people still focus just on console sales as the metric for success in the industry. When Xbox has 500 million monthly active users, and maybe like 90 million are on console. Access point. Console's an access point, and it's going to continue to be an access point for Xbox because guess what? There's a lot of us that like to spend a lot of money that are console gamers and are invested in the Xbox ecosystem. PlayStation is still their main way. They have barely started scratching the surface on PC gaming this generation. They're going to continue to expand upon that because they need to find more players. They need to find more and more players beyond their traditional market because there's no guarantee they're even going to sell to all the same console gamers over and over and over again. What happens when a disaster launch like Concord happens affects PlayStation way more than it affects Xbox. So overall, like, PlayStation consumers should be looking at it being like, well, what's going to happen here? What's going to happen if Fair Games flops? What's going to happen if Marathon flops? Are they going to cut the service? How do you have faith? If you're a PlayStation customer and you're considering buying Fair Games, if they actually charge for it, like they were planning with Concord, maybe this changes their model for all these games. But if you were to be considering, well, I have faith that they're going to support this game, I'm going to buy it, You can't fucking have faith. They canned Concord after 2 weeks. How does this affect them? This affects PlayStation a lot of ways. Fuck, I think Concord is having a hard look in the mirror right now, Bold. I think they're trying to figure out, like, okay. All right, well, Helldivers is a success. Concord was the worst disaster in fucking gaming history, just about. Like, well, where do we go from here? What's going to happen with these other games? Did we cancel the wrong ones? Did we greenlight the wrong ones? What model do we going forward for these other franchises that we're hoping to have some success? Yeah, it affects a lot of decision making behind the scenes. Like, they got to look at themselves. Like Jade Raymond and that studio they're making Haven, making fair games. They got to be looking at this and like, fuck. They didn't even sell 25,000, and we thought that was a good game. It shut down within 2 weeks. What happens if we don't succeed? If I'm PlayStation, I'd be like, fuck, I don't know what to do here. How do we fix this? Well, they need to invest in the right franchises. Is what they need to do. The right games. Like, they understand what consumers want generally with single player games, but I don't think they understand what consumers want with multiplayer. I think they just wanted to make their version of this, their version of that. Oh, we're going to make our version of this and it's going to be successful. We're going to make our version of that and it's going to be successful because we're making it good. We're making a high quality version, right? It's going to stand above the rest in that genre because it's high quality. It's PlayStation. We're going to make our version of it, and it's going to do well. And that's honestly what I think they're thinking. They got to rethink that whole strategy. The one that it seemed like they had the least faith in was the most successful one. That's Helldivers. Because the original, fun. There was nothing like it. Jasper, I know one you should make that would sell called Spider-Man Online. Yeah, that would sell. It would also sell more consoles too. But like, in that, maybe that's people like when they canceled factions and then like, the developers try and make it like a win. Like, you know, we couldn't really like do the single player kind of games that we want to do, that we love making, if we make factions, because it's just so big and it would take too much of our time and effort to support something so big. Well, and then you see like the PlayStation gamers, I'll be like, yeah, that makes sense. You know, just keep making, hey, that's cool, guys. Make the next single player thing, right? That's all we want. That's all we want from you. Don't worry about it. You know, you promised it to us. It was supposed to be part of the game. You delayed it. You eventually turned it into something else. Then you made it into a separate thing. And then now it's so big that you can't even sustain it, you say, and make other games, so you need to cancel it. Hey, that's cool. That's fine. Continue making your games, right? Continue making your single-player experiences that we know and love. And that was the messaging there. If Xbox did the same thing, they've been fucking crucified. If Xbox came out Halo Infinite and didn't have fucking, like, traditional multiplayer... or like one of the biggest modes in it, like, and then they just canceled it, and like, oh, you only get in the single player, like, they're fucking crucified. However, obviously Halo is known as more of a multiplayer game, but that's because it exists. Last of Us could have continued to evolve into that, and they had a popular mode back in the day with the factions that they could have expanded upon, just release it in a smaller form or fashion and grow it into something good. Like Helldivers 2 was a smaller experience, and it's going to continue to grow into something, hopefully, unless they let that fail, unless they let that dwindle and don't support it. But yeah, they flipped it on the consumers and made like the factions cancellation as like some kind of a win for them. Microsoft would be expected to get support to expand the studio to make that. That's why they have those support studios. That's why they have the certain affinities. That's why they have studios like that come in and help with the multiplayer. They expand. That's why they grow the studios to bigger numbers. But PlayStation gets a pass on it. Hey, we shouldn't expect that from them. So they can just focus on their single player. Okay, that's fine. They can focus on the single player, but have more developers, have more people, have another team. Get a third-party developer to come in and help develop it. Finish the shit that you promised. How about Concord? You actually have some kind of a pipeline or interesting thing about the game that's going to give people hope for the future of it. Instead of say, hey, it's content complete at launch, everybody, $40. People want an investment into feel like the time they're investing in these multiplayer games is going to be rewarded in the long haul. That they feel like there's a reason to keep going back to it. That they feel like they're going to have something to look forward to in the future of it. And like they just don't get that. PlayStation doesn't understand that shit. And until they do, until they figure out how to invest in it, until they figure out how to grow that, they will never have their single player, huge, massive, successful multiplayer franchises. Instead, they'll just keep relying on second and third party. They'll make their 30% from them, right? They'll make about 30% from the Microsoft games and all that other kind of stuff. But what you got to think about this: what kind of position does that put them in? With negotiations, with control over their whole ecosystem. If you have your competitors and you have other third party publishers dictating the success of your system, of your whole platform, and you're still reliant on the success of that platform to succeed and reach consumers, what does that mean for you? You got to figure shit out yourself. You got to have those successes yourself. You got to figure that out. Or you got to have enough of the others to offset it in successful single player games. And they've abandoned that. There's a pipeline is too far and few between on that. So they rely on deals with second, third party where they make less money even on that. And it's used pretty much as a marketing aspect to add coolness to the brand and sell more consoles. But even a lot of those games end up fail to meet expectations. The second, third party games that are exclusives are the ones that always fail to meet expectations. Those are the ones that always end up flopping. Those are the ones that always end up being a disaster. And those are also ones that are not always staying exclusive. And everybody continues to talk about the Xbox exclusivity. Meanwhile, Xbox has released multiple exclusive games to Xbox and PC this year. Yeah, I know it's going more and more to PlayStation over time. Like, we talk about that a lot. But if PlayStation's idea for solving their problems is second and third party deals, those games are also usually going to Xbox too. We're still waiting for an announcement potentially at Tokyo Game Show where they might get announced for Final Fantasy 16 or maybe even Final Fantasy 7 Remake get announced for Xbox. They already lost Final Fantasy 14 Online now. What other second and third party games are not going to continue to be exclusive for PlayStation? We know Black Myth Wukong will eventually go to Xbox. It's a continuing thing where people aren't looking at all the aspects of these things. And it's like, hey, let's applaud. And the games media will also applaud the exclusivity deals and applaud PlayStation for doing these things. And all those deals that they make, saying that it fills their pipeline. It's good for the PlayStation gamers. It's good for the consumers. And meanwhile, if Xbox actually acquires studios to fill their pipeline and guarantee games for their consumers, guarantee games going forward for their consumers, guarantee that games will continue to go into their service and their subscription service day and date, that's a much better value than the competition, it's a problem. Concord would have been such a disaster if Xbox released that. And it would have been like absolutely crazy with games media. But anyway, it's PlayStation, so hey, we'll give them a pass. Rainbow says because players aren't dumb, they'll know. Oh, let's see what you're talking about. My prediction, take it with a grain of salt, is that Wolverine will be day one PC. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I could see that. I mean, it's already being played on PC, right? Rashidao says Verge. Spencer says every time we ship a game on PlayStation, Sony captures 30% of the revenue to try to reduce Xbox's survival. Yeah, I hear you. My take on that is look at it like a Trojan horse a little bit. And if Xbox is content with staying where they are in the console space, which I think they are at this point, they're looking beyond this coming generation about where gaming is going. I think ultimately their decision is they're just going to take a bigger piece of the larger pie and kind of force their market position on everybody, and their market position is going to grow as there's more consumers. And that's just, I think, a different approach. And us as gamers are not used to it. But it kind of is what it is. OCD Gaming, the more money Xbox makes from PlayStation, the more money they can invest in Game Pass content. That's true. Imagine the budget they can put into the next Halo, Gears, and Forza with all the new extra money from PlayStation. I just want good games, and I want them in Game Pass, and I want them to release like at a regular interval, kind of, to where I have games to look forward to all year. And that's what I look for. That's what I'm looking for, right? Xbox, much like PlayStation relied on second, third party a lot this generation. Xbox has been doing a lot of that too with Game Pass deals, indie games, AA games, also some bigger games in the Game Pass day and date also. But Xbox has way more first party content coming, way more games. Fuck, the biggest game of the year this year is coming to Game Pass day and date. And if you guys played the Call of Duty Black Ops 6 beta, you know how big of a deal this Call of Duty is going to be. This whole release for Call of Duty in Game Pass day and date is going to be absolutely massive. I think it's going to do big things for Xbox. I think it's going to do be the most popular Call of Duty in years, in a long time, if not maybe the most popular ever, because everybody in that community is super hyped about Call of Duty. After playing this beta, I am fucking super hyped about this Call of Duty. We have Starfield content coming this year. We have Diablo content coming this year. There's still more games. There's Indiana Jones coming this year. Yeah, it's coming to PlayStation later, but I'm playing it on fucking Xbox when it launches. Just tons of games. And then the next year you got Avowed, you got Fable, South of Midnight. You can already start listing Doom Dark Ages. You can already list 4 big releases for Xbox first party studios for next year. I dare anybody to do that for PlayStation for first party. Yeah, that Donnie B says Black Ops 6 beta is fire. Hell yeah. It's I think tonight it's going off, or tomorrow it's going offline, and it'll be back in like 2 days, right? But yeah, it's been fucking amazing. Like, I've been playing the shit out of it. So good. Ah. All right. Well, I think I've had enough rants and rambles, as Fuzzy would say. Rambles and rants tonight. Tomorrow should be no streams or anything like that. But Thursday, we will be back for PM and the PM at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. And then Friday, 10 p.m. Eastern Time for Xbox Ultimate Podcast. And we'll probably have more to say about that. Cygnus says Silent Hill 2. That's not first party. It said first party, bro. Death Stranding 2. Yes. There you go. You got one. Silent Hill 2. Is it? It's Konami, right? I'll give you Death Stranding 2. But it's still not it's also not a first party studio. However, it's fine. Published by PlayStation. Silent Hill 2, is it published by PlayStation? If it is, I'll give you that. But I'll say also, Silent Hill 2 looks like shit. Besides that, though. Everybody, you guys rock. Thanks for being here. I appreciate you all tuning in for the impromptu stream. I know that some were asking in Discord if I was going to stream tonight. I wasn't planning on it. And then it turned out I was going to be able to. So I put it out there and you guys showed up. So it means a lot to me when you guys just show up for these streams, even if it's not a regular podcast night or whatever, and hang out for the solo streams. It means a lot to me, but I appreciate each and every one of you guys. And like I said, tomorrow, no stream, Thursday, PM to PM, Friday, Xbox Ultimate. And I hope y'all have a good one. Be careful. Don't accidentally buy Concord. Don't accidentally buy it because it's going to be worthless. Peace out, everyone. Have a good one. Bye.